Welcome, everybody. Welcome. And thank you for joining us today in this wonderful conversation with this wonderful panel about our oceans in peril, the imposition of deep seabed mining and other extractive practices in our oceans. My name, for those that do not know me, is Adi Martinez Roman, and I'm the co-director of Right to Democracy with my colleague, Neil Weir. And we have been working to build a movement to confront our colonial rule that affects the 5 U.S. territories. And in this occasion, we are doing this conversation with panelists from the territories of the Pacific, because the situation we're going to talk about is affecting them directly. And we really wanted to make it visible and have an in-depth conversation about what is happening in the Pacific at this time with the oceans. And I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, but first, if you want to answer questions, there is a question and answer box where you can put your questions. That will make sure that I see those questions and I can share it with the panelists. If you put it in the chat, I may see it, I may not see it. Angelo may see it or may not see it. So it's better to do it in the question and answer. You can definitely chat with each other in the chat and chat with us, but to make sure we see the question, please do it at the chat box, the question and answer box. And yes, I have the pleasure of hosting this panel with Angelo Villagomez. He is a cross-territorial coalition member. He is senior fellow at the Center of American Progress and the Ocean Co-Lead of America the Beautiful for All Coalition. Also with us, we have Dr. Sabrina Suluay Mauka, Executive Director of the American Samoa Resilience Office and founder of FINAO, a nonprofit organization focused on youth environmental advocacy in American Samoa. We also have the pleasure of having our cross-territorial coalition member, Mary Jo Kenga, a fisherwoman and community advocate from the island of Guam. And also we have Dr. Stephen Manao Kamai Johnson, Assistant Professor of the Department of Natural Resources and the Environment at Cornell University and the Acting President of Tano Tasi Yantodu. And he is from the Northern Mariana Islands. And I am going to pass it to Angelo to kick us off in this activity.
All right, thank you so much, Addie. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and thank you for organizing this whole webinar. I am a proud member of Right to Democracy, and I think I've been there since you launched a couple of years ago. And it's just been very exciting to see all the great things that you do. But the hat I'm wearing today is with America the Beautiful for All Coalition, which is a national coalition, and some of the members are on the phone today. And we are supportive of the twin goals of protecting 30% of lands and waters in the United States, and also Justice 40, which is this idea that the benefits of conservation should go to the communities that live near those places. A lot of people don't know this, but 30% of all U.S. waters are in the U.S. Pacific territories. So there's no other communities that care more about the ocean or who have the right to be involved more than any other community in the country and how some of these decisions are made. We are going to talk about deep sea mining today. It's a hot issue taking place in American Samoa, and Right to Democracy and America the Beautiful have partnered to support the work that Sabrina is leading at home. And we have a petition, and that will it's online, and we're asking citizens and friends and family of the territories to sign it. And we'll discuss that a little bit more as the panel goes on. But we're not just going to talk about deep sea mining. There's a larger issue of how is ocean conservation conducted in the U.S. territories. NOAA is headquartered in Honolulu. Fish and Wildlife Service, I think, is headquartered in Oregon, and the EPA is headquartered in San Francisco, and our islands, and of course, Washington D.C. is thousands and thousands of miles away, and a lot of the decision making and the power doesn't lie with our islands. And so, what we hope to discuss today are some of the ways that our communities grab that power and participate in ocean conservation, and discuss ways that we can do it better. But we also hope to end on sort of a happy note of like, how are we doing this really well? And as a cross-territory coalition, how can we learn from one another so that we're doing this together and unifying our voices? So I do want you to get to know all of the panelists a little bit better. So I'm going to ask them. I'm going to hand the microphone over to them, and I'm going to ask all of them just to introduce themselves again, tell us a little bit about themselves, and then they have the choice of answering two questions. And if you're watching, I invite you to answer the questions in the chat. The first question is, what is the best fish you've ever caught? Not the biggest. What is the best fish you've ever caught? And then the second question just being, tell us something that you would really want people to know about your home. So I will pass the baton to Sabrina first. Dr. Sabrina, why don't you take it away?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. As mentioned, I am Sabrina Sulaimahuka, and I am joining you from American Samoa. Right now, I am wearing two hats. I am the Executive Director for the American Samoa Resilience Office, and also the founder of Finfinau, which is a youth-led nonprofit organization focused on environmental stewardship and climate action. And so my work does bridge policy, community engagement, and intergenerational leadership because I used to be a teacher. And so I firmly believe that our young people are the future and they're our present. And I won't go too much into my background, but to answer the icebreaker, I think it's been a while since I have fished, but I think the best fish I've ever caught was a laya, which is a parrotfish. And if you had parrotfish, you know very well that that is very delicious. And the best part of it was that I didn't have to make it myself. My dad fried it and used some pepper and salt with that. So yes, thank you.
That's great. And I see that people are already commenting on the chat of what their best fish are. So please keep that going.
Yeah, Galvin already has the best answer. Thank you, Galvin. MJ, why don't you take it away?
Thank you for that question, because I think I went overboard when you ask a fisherman about their brag boards. I think I sent Addie about 50 pictures of what I caught, but I think the two best fishing experiences I had is I caught a 171-pound marlin on a 12-foot boat, and that is really hard. The boat kept going in circles, and it took us 2 hours to bring it in. So that was like the most satisfying. But the most memorable fishing incident that I've ever had was going out with my father out here on the reef on a place called Luminau, which is actually federally mandated where we can't go anymore. And I was 9 years old, and I threw my talaza, and we came home with, I think, 2 buckets of fish. So we were catching sedzen, which is a rabbit fish that is part of our local cuisine down here. But I like any kind of fishing. I can spearfish, troll, I can net fish, and thanks for the question.
MJ, but tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay, well, my name is...
You're a fisherwoman. And yeah, go ahead.
I was kind of nervous because when I think Angela wrote this article in our newspaper. You put me down as a local leader. I've never seen myself as a leader. I can tell you that I walked into the Guam Museum during COVID and I met Addie. And I had some very strong feelings about the missile defense plan that was happening over here. And I have been fishing for over 30 years. I'm a fisherman by choice. I practice chamorro cultural fishing, such as net fishing and spear fishing. And I needed a place to, I guess, put these pains that were happening in my community, especially with the big missile defense initiative that's coming on. And what can I tell you? I am a very active community member. I vote. I follow all of the community initiatives, whether they are damaging or benefit the island. I've had the fortunate experience to follow Addie and kneel around to the different conferences and meet my family from the different territories. And I have chosen to pick up their fights as well. I can tell you that I am an educated woman. I've worked for the federal government. I've been a sole business proprietor. And there's nothing more satisfying to me than providing food for my community with my own hands. So I'm here today because I think the conversation has to be made. I feel that the negative rapport of what we don't have, we need to switch it up and find a way together to make the changes that we want to happen. Because right now we are in danger. We are an endangered species. So I just wanted to show up, and I'll keep showing up, and I'll still keep fighting for Guam. Thank you.
Thank you so much, MJ. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Stephen.
Yeah. Aloha, hafa day, everyone. I'm Stephen Mana'akamai Johnson. I'm an assistant professor at the Department of Natural Resources and the Environment at Cornell University, and I'm also the acting president of Tanau Tasi Toru, a nonprofit organization based in the CNMI and Guam. So our own little mini cross-territorial coalition. Let's see, a little bit about myself. I was born and raised on the island of Saipan, but I'm of the Kanaka Maoli or Native Hawaiian diaspora. So my life story, my family's history really spans kind of the whole breadth of the Pacific. And my mom's side of the family is actually from Jamaica, so I've got some Caribbean roots as well. So I love the territories. I love the insular areas. I think they're quite special. My work and my research is really a love letter to the places I'm from and the people I come from. I'm a human environment geographer by training, and most of my research is looking at the ways that conservation and climate change are impacting Pacific Island communities. To answer the icebreaker question, what was the best fish I caught? Well, the best fish I ever caught was at least 2,100 miles away from the Pacific Ocean. And if you know your math, that means you're probably like somewhere in the middle of America. And it was actually a tiny little minnow that I caught while ice fishing in Wisconsin. So it's not the biggest, couldn't eat it, but the fact that it was like 2 degrees Fahrenheit outside, I had an ice auger to get my little hole, and I actually caught something before I froze. Is pretty special to me. So that's the best fish or the best fish story I have. And something about the CNMI that I wish others would know. This is probably going to start a fight in the chat, but I think the CNMI, particularly Saipan, has the best sunsets of all the territories. So come at me.
I mean, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And Stephen, I would note that you're a scientist. And do you know what the difference between a scientist and a fisherman is? When a scientist catches a fish and he tells the story, the fish stays the same size. So that minnow has remained a minnow. But when MJ tells that story, the fish gets bigger every single time she tells the story.
Maybe in your family, bro, but not mine.
Yeah, it was big the first time. And I also want to apologize to everybody. Apparently, the chat is only open to us, the hosts and the panelists, and
We're
we have
gonna try
failed.
to fix that. We're
We're
gonna
going to
try
try to
to
open it.
fix that.
But
Mhm.
some of the great answers are Galvin said that the best fish he ever caught was his wife. Kevin caught a invasive fish and fried it up and ate, or actually, your friend caught the invasive fish and you fried it up and ate it. So we're going to try to open up that chat, and you'll all be able to read what everybody is saying in there. So that's on us. Apologies for that. But Addie, real quick, what is the best fish you ever caught?
So, you really threw me under the bus. I'm going to share a picture. There you go. You guys see it? So that little thing is the only fish I've caught, the only one ever. So I'm really hoping that this cross-territorial work is going to take me and develop my fishing skills, because I really don't have any. Of course, it was let out back to to the water because it was too little. So that's it. That's what I caught.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I also have a fish story. My best fish story is also not from the Pacific. I was tagging sharks in the Caribbean with the Dutch Caribbean Nature Alliance, and we were using drum lines to catch sharks. And it's just like this heavy thing that you drop in the water with a big hook and a big chunk of fish on it. And we were pulling up tiger sharks that were like 15 and 20 feet long. And it's, the water is kind of murky, and like you're pulling up the line, and sometimes it's like a Caribbean reef shark, which is maybe like this big, but every once in a while you pull up a tiger shark, and if you go to my Facebook, you can see some of those pictures. But enough of the fish stories. Let's go ahead and jump into our discussion, and I think we can start with Sabrina. Sabrina, can you tell us what's going on with deep sea mining in American Samoa right now?
Oh, there you
Sorry,
go.
I actually pushed the wrong button. But yes, as you're aware, the BOEM agency is in the middle of a process to open up area in the Samoan Basin for competitive bidding for deep sea mining. And if it does go through, it wouldn't go to the unsolicited application through Impossible Metals. It would be open to any industry players, including the metals company or any other industry company that would be interested in coming into bid. And we understand that the Samoan Basin is still largely unmapped. There is no comprehensive environmental impact study in existence as of now. BOEM did allocate $5 million for a study, but also the deep sea ocean science at this scale would take multiple years to complete. And for context, if the leasing process does move forward, it would be a minimum of 20 years, and it could definitely be more. And when the first application became public about mid-June, a little in May, the American Samoa government did respond quickly. On June 13th, there was a meeting about a DOE item, but it was with our governor, lieutenant governor, our congresswoman, our Speaker of the House, and our Senate president. Thankfully, they all agreed to stand with the people and oppose deep sea mining in our waters. And this was followed by a press release on June 25th to share that with the public to confirm our leaders' unified stance. From that, a deep sea mining community engagement task force was created, where I was named the task force lead. And this includes agency directors from our Environmental Protection Agency, our Department of Marine Wildlife and Resources, and other relevant departments and folks from the governor's office. And one of our mandates has been public engagement, from hosting community town halls, creating forums, creating informational resources, and doing outreach through webinars such as this. Our first big event for the public engagement was on July 2nd, where we held our deep sea mining community town hall. And we had people share about their concerns and answer questions. We also had a video from BOEM just explaining the process, the leasing process, and then I presented on the actual risks and realities for American Samoa, environmentally, culturally, and also economically. And at this time, we had about 5,000 comments on the BOEM site submitted within the first 2 weeks, I believe. And then our governor did submit a formal request to BOEM to extend the comment deadline from July 16th, and now it is August 15th, the deadline is. Sorry, there's a little bit more context. I'm almost done. For our territory, our leaders are taking formal action. Our Congresswoman Amata submitted her opposition directly to the Department of Interior, and our members of our legislature have also introduced resolutions affirming our stance and the importance of science-driven policy. And our governor also submitted a formal letter to the Department of Interior last week, I believe last week Friday it was submitted. And so right now, the process with BOEM is still moving forward. Our leaders and community, at least a majority of our community, have publicly opposed deep sea mining. And we are trying to get as many strong and detailed science-backed public comments before August 15th. I think I checked it yesterday. We're up to 33,000 comments on the BOEM site. And so we know that, it's an ongoing process. It's not a done deal, but it is a fast moving deal. And so every day does count if we want our voices to be heard and to be effective with whatever decisions are made in DC. Thank you.
Sabrina, your work has been amazing, spearheading this activism that has pushed for this massive participation of people, including the leaders of American Samoa. So definitely congratulations to you. And I know that many people might have some questions for you, so please put them in the chat. We're going to keep the conversation going. We want to hear from MJ and Stephen. What are your thoughts about these extractive practices and what kind of challenges are you facing? Mary, MJ in Guam, Stephen in CNMI, if you can talk a little bit more. Should we start with MJ?
Okay. I took some time to write some of the things that I've been noticing out here. And I just want to let you know that I think the work that you do for American Samoa is so beautiful. And I feel like the people are ready for this. So this is what's happening in my area of the world. And I wanted to put up this graphic because this shows the 16 proposed sites for Guam that the military is planning to implement for an integrated military defense system. And as you can see, it's the entire island. So my question is, where can a fisherman safely harvest food in this graphic? And then also, it's causing a lot of pain in my community because although they do have the EIS meetings, they send some information out for surveys and such, but it just feels like you're talking blind. And for me as a fisherman, it is going to kill fishing in the Western Pacific forever. So the second graphic that I wanted to show you was, so this is an initiative from NOAA. And for me, I feel like it's so ludicrous. What's wrong with this picture? After you just saw the missile defense initiative, and they want to pass these endangered species acts, which for critical habitat, this should be their biggest argument. And this is the thing about my fishing community, that we are so hurt. But I have hope, and I feel that maybe someone out there, environmentalists, even on an international stage, they're gonna look at this and say this is ridiculous. So can you go to the next slide? This is a local initiative where they are gonna consider bans on local fish that we use in our cultural diet. So I feel like, I guess my part, or my fishing community's part, is we want to get people excited and let them know, like, it's not too late. If we band together, especially for cross-territorial initiatives, maybe we can help some of this regulation so that these small projects we'd love to participate, but to me, this is not the big picture. Last weekend, I mentioned to you guys that I joined the 2025 International Fishing Derby. And then, Addie, can you put a picture of that boat up there? Okay, well, okay, you can go back. This is the channel between Rota and Guam. And this is my boat, okay? And then you could go next. That is within the missile sites. This is Rota, which is in the Sinai, our neighbors. This boat right here is an exploration boat that does farm for minerals and extracts minerals from the ocean. I can put in the comments on the notes, the information on the vessel. But Gaddy, can you go to the video? I wanted to give you guys a little hope because do you have the video? It's not it. Okay. Anyways, it's the last two I gave you. Sorry.
Is it showing?
No, it's okay.
Yes.
I can probably load it later. Anyways, what I wanted to tell you guys is, I was feeling disheartened because I saw that boat, but on our way back up north, we saw a pod of humpback whales. So, you know what? We are still here. I'm going to do whatever I can to help you guys in any kind of a environmental initiative, especially because the ocean, in the simplest truth, it sustains life. So, I'm going to try to be more positive about my messages, and I'm going to help to share your initiatives that you are fighting for as well, because eventually it's going to come to each of our shores. Thank you.
Definitely. And part of the work we're developing in Right to Democracy is the Environment and Democracy Fellowship that we already are announcing next week, the different fellows of the different territories, so we can keep these conversations going about the intersections between the environment and the issues with decision making and the lack of democracy. Stephen, do you want to speak a little bit about CNMI, please?
Yeah. No, I definitely want to build off of what MJ shared. I love that this webinar ends up being like a breaking news forum as well, with the photos and the videos of the mining exploration ships. I'm gonna intellectualize this and kind of take a step back a bit in that deep sea mining may or may not be an imminent threat to the CNMI. I think Mary Jo's MJ's photo shows that it is an imminent threat. But even if that boat wasn't there, I think what we need to focus on, and I think what Right to Democracy helps us hone in on, is that any infringement of the rights in the U.S. territories or the indigenous communities is a threat to the CNMI. Right. So any assertion of power that's happening in American Samoa or Puerto Rico or the Virgin Islands, or the Pacific remote islands, right, that is a threat to all the territories. Right. We're all connected. We're all in this kind of precarious but different relationship with the U.S. federal government. And so I think right now we have a hot topic of deep sea mining. It's the thing that the federal government sees as an opportunity to capitalize on. But it's really just a stand-in for the reassertion of power and control of who makes decisions about the U.S. territories. And so I think, deep sea mining is the thing that we've got to fight against today. But we have to see it as that is just the avenue in which the federal government might be asserting power, the way it's done with conservation in the past, of saying we're going to put territories and put protected areas in territories without proper engagement strategies, right? Is that these are reassertions of power and control. And so I think, we'll get into some of the current challenges that we're facing and more specific in the CNMI, but I want to kind of zoom out a little bit from that specific topic of deep sea mining to, kind of call the elephant in the room out, is that this is a power play above all, is to say that we have the final say of what happens here, not you.
Yeah, I feel like, Stephen, there's also like this theme of, you're living on the island, you're doing your thing, and the military has plans, And then the conservation NGOs have plans, and then the conservation government agencies have plans. They're maybe not talking to each other at all. And then with this deep sea mining, now you're throwing in, now industry has plans. And from the perspective of the islander, it's just like this loss of control, this loss of sovereignty. And when you don't really know what's going on, or why why the government NGO, why the government conservation agencies and why the NGOs are doing certain thing, you assume bad intentions. And a lot of times there isn't bad intentions, but it doesn't get communicated. And like I can tell you, the NGOs do not coordinate with the military, right? Like I promise you they do not. But back home, there's a lot of belief that these NGOs are coordinating with the military. And it's not because they're asking for the same things. It's because the outcome kind of feels the same of, you're coming from off the island, you have these ideas of what to do with my natural resources, and you're not involving me to the degree that I feel like I should be involved. And then MJ, you've got your hand up, so please chime in.
I just wanted to say that I feel like you encapsulated what Pacific Islanders feel inside, and maybe we're not as boisterous, but I think one question that comes to mind is who owns these minerals, or who owns these rights? It's the practices more that I'm against, and if these other territories would like to, have this kind of mineral extraction in their areas, that's their right. But what I don't know, or there's nothing to gauge it against, is where have they done this in the past where they haven't over farmed or over, to the point of destruction? And then the second thing is, who, because they are going to be doing damage in our area, what is the trade-off? Is that licensing? Do we price it so that, hey, because we've ruined this fish stock on this side, we're going to pay you this much or that much? So anyways, that's in my mind, but I just wanted to say, Angelo, that is exactly what I'm feeling, what you just said.
I think definitely Sabrina can talk to that precisely. Sabrina, and I know you raise your hand.
Yes, it's definitely an interesting conversation because we have to navigate this with the understanding that, yes, we are a territory, and we have to understand what is within the rights of our territory and what's within, federal waters. Yes, you can state that fact all day, but at the same time, what happens within the federal waters within our EEZ, it's our people from American Samoa. It's, if that's going to affect other people in the territory too, it's going to affect us. It's not going to affect the folks that are in Washington, D.C. They are the people who will be making the decisions. So they can bear all the potential benefits, but American Samoa will bear the risk. American Samoa will have to determine whether or not our waters will be toxic from all of the refinement or the moving around of the sediments. American Samoa will determine whether or not this is going to eliminate, not bring in diversification for an industry. Our tuna canneries are one of our biggest factors for our economy. How is deep sea mining going to affect us? How is that going to affect the 5,000 workers who deal with our canneries, from, processing the fish, from shipments? Yes, there might be jobs in the long run, is that confirmed? What kind of jobs are we going to get for American Samoa? Do we have to spend millions of dollars revamping our port for that? Who's going to train our people from American Samoa so that there are jobs for us? Can we quantify how many jobs that we're going to get? Can we quantify what potential benefits that we might get as well? Because yes, now we understand with the application for Impossible Metals, they did change where they agreed to give American Samoa 1% of the potential profit. But if we look at the numbers again, I think, and the numbers and the science speak for themselves. We don't need deep sea mining right now. We don't need these critical minerals in our EEZ because there's already existing minerals. There's recycling that can be done. And in terms of profit, That's paying off of all of the royalties. That's only if these minerals do sell. And we know that a lot of organizations and businesses have said that they're not going to be using minerals from deep sea mining. That's only after paying off of all the investors and everyone that's involved with this. It's a business, right? And so 1% of nothing is what American Samoa could get because there's no actual number to back that up. And another item that was also shared, like we could be like Norway. That comparison is not very accurate, and it is deceiving because Norway got rich off of oil. Please show me somewhere in the Pacific, somewhere in the world where people have gotten rich off of deep sea mining. I'm going to stop there because I think I'm getting a little bit more passionate than should be.
Never. We welcome passionate. Um, uh, we were wondering, Stephen, if you want to share more about the challenges faced in the Marianas, but also we have a question from one of the attendees about how far out to shore does U.S. territory jurisdiction extend versus federal jurisdiction? And I know you and Angelo can answer that question.
Yeah, this is a simple but kind of sticky question. We have things called submerged lands. In the CNMI, it's 3 nautical miles. I think that might be true for most places. There's things called territorial waters, which go out to like 12 nautical miles. And so it's a mix, and the federal government at times has, there's for most of the CNMI's history, the CNMI did not have those territorial waters. So I think when we start to play with these definitions, right, we're trying to really like quite literally toe the line and figure out, okay, I'm not really stepping on your toes, right? So I think when we're getting into these imaginary lines on a map, they can be inviting to maybe offer some clarity, but it could also be, a game that could flip at the drop of a hat, right? So I'll leave that in there for the audience to chew on, is to actually think about not just where that line is today, but what's the history and process in which those lines are drawn on a map. As a geographer, I kind of obsess about those things. But right, we want to not just think about where that line is, but it wasn't within probably many of our attendees' lifetimes, there was no such thing as an EEZ, right? An EEZ is a very young concept, right? And so even that, we need to, not think of it as this permanently fixed thing that exists out there, but it is a social construction of the ocean that we can contest, right? That we should contest, because the voices that we're allowed to say 200 nautical miles means something was not a pluralistic voice, if we're being frank. So to talk about kind of the current challenges towards ocean sustainability in the CNMI, I think, again, these apply across the territories, but climate change, I want to make sure we don't forget that climate change is the slow threat that is there. We've locked in a lot of momentum and inertia into the climate system that even if we, stopped all the bad things affecting our climate, that is still going to be impacting our ocean resources and sustainability there. Secondly, I would say, the way that conservation is being enacted, and I would characterize it as not even just conservation, but resource management more broadly. It doesn't just have to be the what we might imagine as conservation, but even fisheries management, right? Where these decisions are coming from, what type of voices are getting privileged to make decisions are usually from outside the territories. And what we're seeing now is this term we might call like seesaw conservation, right? Where the Pacific Islands Heritage Marine National Monument is the full 200 nautical miles. And then the next administration comes in, no, it's not. You can fish in it. And then it's closed again because a judge said that you can't, right? And so because conservation is happening and decision-making is happening from outside of the territories, you're just having this whiplash, right? There's no consistency. And then if the conservation rule makers say, NOAA, say, oh, critical habitat is going to apply here, there's almost always a military exemption, right? There's almost always going to be some carve out that allows national defense and national security to be prioritized over anything else, right? So everyone else has to play by the rules, but we always carve out these exemptions. And then lastly, I would also say that no, just militarization is a huge threat to ocean sustainability. MJ showed the map of what they plan to do with Guam. Tinian in the CNMI is going under rapid usage by the U.S. military for training, and so I think those are the three main issues affecting ocean sustainability in the CNMI.
And I think the purpose of Right to Democracy, one of the lesson that we want to bring to this is that a lot of this is by design. A lot of this is due to colonial rule in the United States and the fact that we were territories and not states. But what we're hoping is that there are intersections between the three territories and that there are things we can do together. And things that we can learn from one another to address some of these issues. So I guess I'll bounce this to Sabrina. I'm reading. But what are some of the connections that you've sort of seen in some of these challenges that are emerging?
Yes, and I would add to that question, Angelo, and to your comment about our place as territories in the decision-making processes, because it's not only about what we could be, is that we have never been able as territories to actually establish a relationships that is really clear with the United States about what our powers are. So there is, for example, a comment in the chat about the deeds of secession giving unique power to American Samoa over the waters. And I want Sabrina to comment also a little bit about that, because it is a good example of that intersection between the environment and democracy that we are talking about. Because one thing is what you negotiate and one thing is what is actually acting out under the law. So Sabrina, can you please explain a little, attend that and the other intersections that you see in these matters?
Yes, it is a fine boundary of where, whose rights it is. But I would like to share something that I had referenced before, which was the resolution from our House of Legislation. And this was a resolution that was brought up. It was brought up by our Faipule Gur from Whangatongo. And it was citing the deed of cession for Tutuila and Aunuu in the 1900s. Specifically, reading aloud, the government of the United States of America shall respect and protect the individual rights of all people residing within the territory so ceded. And it is especially declared that the rights of the chiefs in their respective villages and the rights of all people to their lands shall remain in full force and virtue. And then for the deed of cession for Manua in 1904, solidifies our authority over land and the sea, declaring that the sovereignty of these islands is hereby transferred to the United States, but the land shall remain the property of the people. No part of the land shall be taken without just compensation. And so we're talking about, what is American Samoa's right and what is within the right of the U.S. being the motherland. Deep sea mining threatens not only the ecological balance of our marine environment, but also the contractual agreements between these deeds of cession for who has the authority without proper consultation with the community, with our government, because it could be a potential violation of our sovereign rights. And so those are discussions that our legal team is having, our attorney generals on the task force, our House of Representatives and our Senate are also looking at each line of these deeds so they can determine, American Samoa's stance and what is within our rights. So yes.
Yes, and definitely these are the conversations that will pertain not only to American Samoa, but to other territories as we try to figure out what are those, what is the opportunity that we have to have power over our waters and over our environment. For example, in Puerto Rico, the legal framework is a little different, and we still are upholding the framework that was established by the Spanish Empire before the U.S. came to Puerto Rico. And what powers does that give us? And that is what we used to argue. So I think having these and continuing these conversations among the territories is very important. And I wanted to hear from MJ. What does she sees at those intersections between an environment and your situation and democracy?
Well, I thought about this statement that you had, or these questions that you sent, and one of the statements that I wanted to say first and foremost is that when you do any kind of activity in the ocean, it affects the entire area. And no matter what anyone says, any kind of extract, any kind of damaging or change to the ecosystem is going to affect the other side of the island. It might even affect the fish stock all the way out to the different countries. So I think maybe it's just time that we do a cross-territorial initiative where we get our local leaders to sign the same kind of mandate so that we can, hey, let's just pause. Let's do a moratorium before we do any kind of action. So the intersection for me, I think, is I'm going to continue to inform my community about what's happening right now and to make sure that I bring with me my cultural fishing practices, because pretty soon we're not going to be able to go anywhere on the island, or maybe the long-term effects of these practices will pollute and damage the island where we can't even harvest any food. So I think this intersection between science and wealth, we need to include our local people, because one of the things that I just could not believe is we can't came out of COVID, and I feel that a lot of people have lost their humility. You know, it's not time to have explorations that are going to hurt communities. It's time to lift each other up. And, we could fight all day about whose does this belong to, but in the end, it's the wrong practice. So let's just take pause and do our research. So I'm at the intersection where I am trying not to be emotional about it, but it's a big decision. It's there's the chickens. It's a big decision. And I feel that as a Chamorro, I need to say something. We are not boisterous people. We don't tell the neighbors our business. But today, I got your back. And I'm going to tell everybody, like, you know what? This is not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, MJ. And I think, Stephen, that MJ signaled something very important of the intersection of science and wealth, which is a major one. Do you want to comment a little bit more about that intersection and others that you see in these challenges that we're facing?
Yeah, science. I saw this great thing on. This is a statement you can say less and less as time has gone by. I saw this great thing on Twitter, but it was this scientist saying, we don't live in a science-based society. We live in a capital-based society. Because if we lived in a science-based society, we would have solved climate change already, right? That the evidence is there, right? And so science is being used as a tool often of capitalism, of industry, right? It's to say, look, we have science to legitimize why we're doing this thing, right? And science, particularly the Western science, is but one of many ways that we know the world, right? And particularly in the Pacific Islands, we have a very, very rich history of doing things that are now called the scientific method, right? We watch, we observe, we experiment, right? We actually experiment, right? There's no way you learn how to catch 1,000 species of fish without experimentation, right? It's not just dumb luck. It's actually intentional practice and learning. But science has been co-opted. It often is being co-opted, and I think in this case, right, we're seeing some of that capital-driven use of science, right, where the science is very, very unclear about what are the long-term impacts of deep sea mining, right? We've tried to solve these problems, but we're not there yet. And as MJ was saying, there's a loss of humility, right? Even I think from science and industry, maybe they've never had it. I'll give them benefit of the doubt, but a humility to say, okay, we'll go and triple, quadruple check the numbers, right? Or if we are trying to go about some of these extractive practices to say decarbonize, well, let's see put money where the mouth is and say let's not actually subsidize fossil fuels anymore, right? Like, don't just be silent on the front lines of some of these scientific debates, but actually push back and say, like, well, we have to stop some of these other things. If you're going to use science to legitimize your own practices, then I think you should also use science to defend communities and people.
I want to call attention to the very exciting chat that we have going on. And if you're watching this on YouTube later, the chat might not have been saved, but it's very exciting and very emotionally driven. But I do want to comment on one thing, and Stephen touched on this: the idea of territorial waters and the EEZ. The territorial governments manage the 3 miles as part of a public trust. The United States has a public trust doctrine. Public lands and public waters belong to everybody. And even the exclusive economic zone from 12 miles to 200 miles is managed in trust by the federal government for all Americans, including those who live in the U.S. Pacific territories. And the struggle when you live in the U.S. Pacific territories is like, I live in Washington, D.C. I don't get to vote for a senator, but if I lived in Virginia or Maryland, I would have the power to threaten politicians with booting them from office, because I would have a senator, I would have a member of Congress, and I would participate in the Electoral College. I do in D.C., but in the territories I do not. So it's a little bit offensive to say that American Samoa does not have control from 3 to 200 miles, because it belongs to all Americans or American citizens and nationals. And the purpose of this webinar and the reason Right to Democracy was pulled together is because divided we fall, but united we stand. And we demand that the people in the territories have a larger voice in how those waters are managed. They are managed by the federal government, but they are owned by me. And they are owned by everybody on this call and everybody on the screen. And that's what we're trying to figure out to do, because we do have power. And it's a really interesting political time in Washington, D.C. But they are still, the people in Washington, D.C. are responsive to public pressure Like you saw last week, where the Smithsonian changed an exhibit, there was a public uproar, and 24 hours later, that exhibit was back in place. And this is a First Amendment right. We are still in the United States. We have the right to petition our government, and this is what Sabrina's doing, and we back her all the way. And to get to what MJ was talking about, is like you were taking to us to MJ, you were taking us to this place. We were about to begin the discussion of what can we do, and it's a conversation of what can we do as residents of the territories, but also what can people in the mainland do to support us. And I wondered if this is the three of you can pop up and chime in, but what are some of the things that you think we can do as territories? And then what are some of the things that we can do as a country?
Okay. Do you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead, MJ. You started.
All right. Well, one of the things that I was thinking about is that we just have to make known what's happening to us and what's being imposed on our cultures, and most importantly, practices we don't agree with. And now that we have media today, somewhere in one of the regulating agencies, the military personnel, indigenous communities, and even perhaps supporting foreign countries, and especially the voting citizens that back up territorial rights, this kind of influence is real. And as a Pacific Islander, we take very big offense to, yeah, but you're only a territory, or, you have this little bit of rights, but a right is a right. And there are people that love our culture and they're waiting for our territories to get to that point where it does matter. So when you do big activity like this, I just feel like we should just flood it on social media and come up with cross-territorial initiatives so that it can be brought to the place where voting is done, regulation is done. That's the only way that I feel that we can do it, because you can't change somebody's mind that is not ready to stop being ignorant. And that's where I'm at. So I feel that if we could just practice some positivity and back each other up instead of getting into this negative narrative, we'll find our people, and we'll find a way together to get our voices out and to protect our ocean.
Yes, I definitely agree with you, MJ. Making visible and making everybody understand, education-wise, that a right is a right. And a right, a fundamental right, a human right that is recognized through all humanity, and that countries like the United States have committed to uphold, like the right of self-determination, like the right to a healthy environment. All these are fundamental rights that even go beyond the concepts of nation and territory. And so therefore, I think that coming together and making this cross-territorial effort to defend our fundamental rights of having a democratic participation and having self-determination over our resources is very important. And I really appreciate America the Beautiful, because it's taking that in a U.S. level to a place that where it supports our issues. So thank you. And I want to hear also from Sabrina and Steven, whoever wants to go first, about what America the Beautiful and Right to Democracy can do to help on these challenges.
Thank you. Yes. I want to just acknowledge also the chat going on too. And just to clarify that I'm not here to fight any companies for deep sea mining, right? I am here to stand up for American Samoa and to stand up for the rights of our community. And sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, but I'm very thankful to platforms like this, because we have organizations like the Right to Democracy and America the Beautiful that can help us, because it is a powerful opportunity for cross-territorial organizing. As mentioned before, right, we share the same ocean. We face the same climate threats. We live under similar governance structures. And if we can coordinate across our territories, we can amplify our voice, and we become much harder to ignore. And so I think I would just stress for everyone on this call, or those who are interested in issues like this, do your research. Like, actually look into research yourself. You don't have to listen to any of us on the call, but there are multiple articles, academic articles, that are science-based, that are also qualitative from the people, the feedback, right? Because one thing that I want to point out is that it's easy to think about the numbers, the potential profit. It's easy to say that, oh, you're just a territory, you're not a country. But we are people at the end of the day. And that's what the decisions should be focusing on, is who is going to be impacted. It's the people. And so for American Samoa, that's what we're doing right now, is we are trying to make sure that our people are taken care of. And that's more than just money. And so just want to conclude that one thing that I've come to understand is that individually we can make ripples of change, but together we can be a tidal wave of resilience. And working together cross-territorial, that's what we should be doing, is becoming that tidal wave of resilience so that they cannot ignore our concerns anymore. Thank you.
I love that, a tidal wave. In a good sense of resistance. Thank you so much, Sabrina. And definitely we're here to support you, to support and yes, we need to get emotional too. Like part of the work we do in Right to Democracy as a cross-territorial coalition is make those spaces to become emotional, to hug each other and to support each other in our emotionality, because it's part of what we are. We're human, and this is our lives and our culture and our existence proper. So yes, thank you for everything, including your passion and your emotionality. Never, don't apologize for that. Stephen, what about your perspective?
Well, I really should have tried to go before Sabrina, because I feel like that was the really eloquent way to maybe transition into an open Q&A. So first, I want to be in the same boat that Sabrina is in. I want to paddle right along with her on that one. But I'm thinking as a native Hawaiian who grew up in the Marianas, I feel like I lived a cross-territorial existence in some ways, of like learning and knowing my Hawaiian history, and then learning and knowing the history of the Marianas, and seeing how not just the colonial histories, which we can, especially in a forum like this, we can really get caught up in, but the history that goes deeper than that exists for way longer than that, right? And how that there's always been this cross-territorial connection in the ways that we treat the land and the sea as relatives, and the stories we tell, in the night sky we look at, right? We share that, we're connected in those ways. And so I think, this might not be the most sexy or exciting thing, but I think sharing and telling our stories, and really going back, because we can sometimes get really stuck in the trauma of now, and I think we've got a lot of positive stuff from or deeper in our past that we should kind of bring to the forefront in our storytelling and in our communication, right? That like the US Pacific territories were connected before they were US Pacific territories, right? Like, we need to make that the narrative. We're not connected by colonial rule, we're connected by ancestral relationality, right? I think those are the types of messages we want to get out there.
Angelo, do you want to say a few words of like commenting on what America the Beautiful sees as possibilities for the future? And then we can move into receiving questions from the public.
So the comment period ends on Friday, and we have a petition, and I see our reporter is still on the line. And I can tell you that there are 918 signatures, and we hope to get to 1,000. And I just shared the petition link in the chat, and the thing we could use from the 60 or 70 participants is to please share that on Facebook, and ask your friends and families from the territories to sign. We'd really love to get to 1,000 by Friday, because that's 1,000 is just a really nice round number. I'll be honest, I didn't think we'd get 900. I thought we'd get like 100, and I thought that would be amazing. And it's just been really incredible to see all of the petitions pile in. The fight does not end on Monday. The sun will rise. Sorry, it doesn't end on Friday. The sun will rise on Monday, and we will continue to advocate for our ocean. And we'll look for ways to do that. We'll put out a press release announcing the final number. And this is really just the beginning. This is something that is going to be going on not just in American Samoa, not just in Sinai and Guam, but like the entire United States is in a place right now where deep sea mining, oil drilling, industrial fishing is being pushed in every inch of our public lands and waters. So, I encourage everybody. Thank you everybody who's like on the call and being a part of this. Kelly literally just signed. Thank you, Kelly, for signing the petition.
Great.
To
add to that, Angelo,
yep.
add to that, just wanted to say that we will get to 1,000 and more, and we are going to submit this comment. And thank you to everybody like Hispanic Access that just said that they are submitting comments for American Samoa. We are want to keep this going. We will submit it, but it will still be open as a symbolic and show of force of everybody that comes together through time in this cross-territorial fashion, and that we in Right to Democracy have seen this as one of our first cross-territorial massive campaigns that shows what can be possible by working together in the issues that affect us cross-territorially. Because when we and everybody, if you want to know more about the conversations we've had in the different territories, there is a report called The Power of Listening, Building a Movement in our website, where you could see how many issues we have in common and how we can support each other moving forward by doing this type of solidarity education type of campaigns. And we intend to keep doing that. And yes, we want to open the floor. It was an intention to open the floor for questions and answers. I don't have any questions in the question box. Angelo, do you see any questions or comments that we should address in the chat?
Yep, from the chat, there was a great question from Andrew. And Andrew's question is, people are starting to recognize how important the deep ocean is for the health of the whole ocean. And it's exciting to see more island-born explorers leading the way and uncovering it. Do any of the panelists have thoughts on how our growing understanding of life in the deep ocean should shape how we think about people's connections to their waters? And feel free to jump in on that.
I'll jump in into the deep end, I guess. Well, right. Where a lot of the new theories are that the deep ocean is where life began, right? And so I think there's something that should actually hit all of us in, I'll use a Hawaiian word, the na'au, or that's like your gut, right? That's the knowledge that comes from within. When you start to contemplate, right, on the one place that we know has complex life in the world, that we might know that its cradle, its nursery, its birthplace was the deep ocean, right? There's something precious and sacred about that. And if it's not hitting you there, right? If it's not moving you as we're learning more and more about how these deep sea ecosystems have allowed life to flourish on the planet, right? You might want to, I think there's a moment to pause and reflect on, what is all of this for, right? And so I think, Andrew's question, how should it shape how we think about our connections, is like, well, that's where we come from, right? And we can look at a lot of our creation stories. I don't necessarily want to use the mythology word, but like in Hawaii, the Kumolipo, right? We emerge from from the darkness, from the ocean depths, right? And so we should probably treat that space like it is where we come from.
Any other panelists want to add to that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll sorry.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
MJ.
You go first, please.
No, go
Please.
MJ, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm a fisherman, and I just wanted to share that on Guam, a third of the island was taken by the military, and there's some areas that it's prohibited and we can't go. But when I go out on the boat, I can see these places. And in these jungles, we still have artifacts. We still have ancient Chamorro villages with our lattice erected. But this weekend, when I jumped on the boat and we went out to Rota, which is the neighboring island, if you do historically some research on Guam, you'll happen upon the Galaiti, which is one of the most technological navigating vessels ever created. We navigated by the stars. They have found sailfish in some of the ancient burial sites that they found, and to me that made me so proud, because that means that they were fishing deep in the ocean. So crossing that channel of water, knowing that missile defense, knowing that deep sea mining is coming, it made everything go quiet. And so I feel like everyone should feel that at least one time in their lives, so that we don't have to keep fighting people off that are trying to take our resources. Maybe if these companies spent some time in your territory and understand your way of life, they will not feel so entitled to such um, greed. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
That's beautiful, MJ. That's beautiful.
Yes, extremely powerful for that last part. I 100% agree. Regarding this last question, and I think that's speaking for more than just American Samoa, but we are descendants of navigators, of voyagers. The ocean has been central to our identity since our inception, right? And so the ocean is not a resource that we can just continue to take from, to extract from. It is a reflection of our culture, our principles of Samoa, of being stewards of our land and our ocean. And whatever decisions we make at the end of the day, right, we have to remember that we should be living as grateful descendants. And that's honoring the land and the ocean that we've inherited. And that means living as a mindful steward, and that's caring for the land and the ocean that we are trusted to hold. And finally, that we are living as worthy ancestors and protecting the land and the ocean that our children will receive. I say this as a community activist. I say this as a mother. because I want my daughter to grow up in a community where the ocean is still something that is for her and for other children of American Samoa. And so I hope that folks at the end of the day don't focus again just on numbers, don't focus on the legal boundaries of this discussion, but focus on the impact it will have on people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. I think that comment at the end of focus on not focusing on the legal is very important. You know, we as lawyers, many lawyers tend to just do that and disregard the connection between legality, legal systems, legal rules, and social change. And it is very important to understand that legality, legal rules will change with society. They were, you know, they changed throughout history. And that's why we at Right to Democracy are trying to do change, legal change, through movement building, because through movement building is how we can build a culture that will promote the change and the legal change in terms of the legality needed in order to respect our realities and our existence. So definitely, we have to go beyond what the law says and start coming together to build new cultures that will actually produce what we want for our communities. I don't know, I don't see any questions in the question and answer box. Do you see anything in the comments, Angelo, that
Yeah, there's a request. David wants to connect with MJ, and he left his email in the chat. I'm not going to say it because this is recorded, but he'd like to talk to you about some of those critical habitat designations. MJ, we'll connect to the two of you.
And I wrote it down, MJ, because I think this is a wonderful task for our new Environment and Democracy Fellow in Guam, Maria Hernandez, that can work with you and David and have those conversations and support you on those conversations, because it's definitely important. And the Friends of Earth Justice doing great work to protect as they can in the legal realm the habitats that we have here in Puerto Rico. They're doing also awesome work. So thank you, Earth Justice, for that. And let's keep that collaboration going. Any other comments that we want to address?
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. So I feel that it has been a wonderful conversation. Does any of the panelists, because we do have a few minutes, wants to close with a few words, not to leave it just to us, but any of you want to say a few words of closing, please go ahead.
I'll start by saying, again, a big thank you to the organizers of this. I think it's such an important conversation. I'm so excited that we're having all of these cross-territorial dialogues and conversations to show solidarity and the depth of knowledge and experience and expertise that exists in the territories, right? We have all the capacity we need to kind of steer our own ships where we want to go. And I think I'll leave with the attendees, right? Particularly in the Pacific, and I think it's also true in the Caribbean, but as soon as outsiders kind of discovered our islands, they've had ideas of what they should look like and what should happen there. and what are the right solutions, and often how our islands can serve other people's needs or solve other people's problems, right? That the solution to climate change must be the extraction of more resources from the territories, right, from the Pacific Islands who did not contribute much to the problem we're in, rather than stopping the bad behavior from within. The solution must come from elsewhere. And so I think I would hope we all reflect on if that is the type of activism, solution-oriented path we're going down, is that others must be the solution to my problem. Again, I think critical self-reflection is in need at an individual level and as a societal level, right? That it should always start with kind of fixing your own house before expecting others to do it on your behalf, right? So I just want to leave that. And again, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this panel.
Thank you, Stephen. Any other words?
Yes, I think at the end of the day, right, if we're talking about consent, we're talking about extraction, we're talking about exploitation. But like I said, if we're summarizing it in one word, it's consent. If American Samoa's waters are being talked about, then American Samoa's voice should be heard and listened to. If we're saying no, and you're going to continue these practices, continue the process, then it's not us resisting, it's us trying to claim our rights and take back what is within our rights. So again, we are not resisting, we are trying to maintain what is within our rights. And so, yes, like we said, we're talking about the legality of boundaries and what's within our rights. American Samoa will bear all the risk. It's not a resistance to innovation. It's not saying that we don't want to get rich. I think Victor Vescovo said it very well last time in our last forum is, we want American Samoa to be rich. That would be great. But we also want American Samoa to remember what it means to be Samoans, and that's taking care of our land and our ocean. And we want American Samoa to be safe. So at the end of the day, do you have our consent? No, you do not have our consent. Moving forward well, I'll let it speak for itself. American Samoa says no. Thank you.
I think we have to leave it at that. Boom. We support you, Sabrina. We support American Samoa. We commend the people of American Samoa for organizing so fast and for being able to organize in a way that actually expressed an unanimous will to get your voices heard. We all support that, and we will keep supporting it and hoping that we can see how what is happening in the other side of the world for us here in the Caribbean is so relevant and important. So we, are divided by a continent in the middle, but really the waters connect. So it's all one, and we are going to keep working and building spaces in order to support each other in our quest to have a voice and have respect to the rights of our people. So thank you so much, everybody here in the panel, MJ, Stephen, Sabrina, and Angelo for being such a wonderful co-host, America the Beautiful, for all the work that we're doing and that we keep doing with this Environment and Democracy Fellowship. You will hear more from us, everybody. Just keep tuned and sign the petition. So thank you so much.